Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, I'm back today because I was an idiot, to be honest. And I apologize for being an idiot because uh, being that I'm new to this, relatively new, and I control all this myself, I don't have a webmaster to help me. Sometimes I go off on a tangent and I don't realize that super chats disappear. And as I'm live, I'm not sure where to go. And so anyway, I decided to come back because a lot of you generous people sent me super chat questions I did not get to. And I don't want to do that. If you're going to support the channel and support me by sending in super chat questions, I want to answer them. However, before I do that, something interesting happened. So Willow Yang, Willow is a patron of mine, and she's also Canadian, and she comes a lot. She's a viewer of the John Campy show and a viewer of me. And I thank her for that support. Sent me something really interesting. So yesterday, someone had written me in the live chat and asked if I knew what the word Baizuo was. Baizuo. Baizu? Baizu. I guess. I had no idea what that was. I'd never heard that word before in my life. I'd never even seen it printed. But Willow Yang wrote in, and she explained to me what that is. And I found it fascinating, so I thought I would share it with you guys before I got to the questions. Maybe someone already told you, Willow Yang writes, but the term Baizu, which one of your viewers raised, is a disparaging term that the Chinese have started using around the 2010s. It is the Chinese equivalent for a social justice warrior. Literally, it means white leftist. Bai meaning white and Zhu meaning left. Some of the Chinese feel that Western liberals have gone too far pushing a progressive agenda and that they are pandering way too much to minorities like African Americans, Mexicans, Muslims, and the LGBTQ community, etc., while ignoring the interest of Asians. An example of a hot button issue is the affirmative action policy in American colleges, not as prominent in Canada, that some of the Chinese, including my own parents and many of their friends, perceive is keeping out high-achieving Asians in favor of lower-achieving African Americans. There are literally actually lawsuits being launched by Asian Americans against Harvard and other Ivy League schools accusing them of discrimination. It is quite ugly. Well, this is something that I was not aware of. I as I said on my last podcast, everybody hates somebody. When it comes right down to it, we all hate one another. I'll tell you something. I'm reading this very interesting book, and it's sort of a book du jour for anybody that's interested in humanity and human history. And this is the second one. It's called Sapiens, and I tend to read books. I follow books when I hear a lot about them, when they've sort of permeated the pop culture discussion. I read a lot of like the New York Times book review, and I try and keep up with both novels and nonfiction books that people are reading a lot. And there's this book, and it's by Yuval Noah Harari. Yuval Noah Harari. This is the book that I believe follows up Sapiens. It might be first, but Homo Deus. And I'm reading Sapiens right now. I just started it last night, and it's fascinating. It's basically a look at the history of, as you might imagine, Homo sapiens since we were, since our inception, and about how culture grew, and it's just fascinating. It's a lot of fun to read. It's an incredibly fascinating book, and all of this chatter about whether it's social justice, whether it's, third wave feminism, all of these kinds of social movements, the whole Jordan Peterson talking about how he hates postmodernism and the Marxists, and, everybody, what happened at my own school at Evergreen State College to Brett Weinstein. I mean, all of this stuff that's going on, what I find interesting about it is at least people are having these conversations, these incredibly, on one hand, yes, people can be very divisive and be standoffish and mean and ugly and disgusting. But on the other hand, there's some really interesting discussion going on. about all of these issues. And we forget this word baizu, what's going on about how the Asian community, the Chinese community, is feeling that they're being discriminated against at Ivy League schools because of excellence, and because they they don't want their perception that what if Harvard was populated only by Asian students? Would that be a bad thing necessarily? I don't know, but these are very interesting questions that are coming up. I mean, I'm here to talk about geeky subjects, but the social issues of the day are bleeding in to that. But anyway, without further ado, I missed some super chat questions, and I if somebody's going to send me in a super chat question, actually pay money to ask me a question or foster some discussion here, I owe it to you guys for to make sure that your support does not go unnoticed. And that was bad of me. I'm still learning the super chat thing. I didn't even know there was a super chat only window. So I'm sorry. I'm still finding this out. So back from my early chat, the Gram of Cinema asks, yo, Rob, it's hard to recommend something you haven't seen yet, but I highly recommend watching the doc Hitman Heart, Wrestling with Shadows, if you haven't. I will look up that. That sounds good to me. Hitman Heart, Wrestling with Shadows is a great title. I would assume I can find that on Netflix, perhaps. I will go look for that and check it out, and I will get back to you. And Willow Yang also wrote me, I'd love to see your take on Guardians 3. Do you already have a story in mind? What adventure would you like the crew to go on next? I don't. I mean, I never even considered the fact that I might be able to go on to do Guardians 3. But I think that I would the second movie was really about broken families coming together. And I think if I was going to do something for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, keep in mind James Gunn's already written his story, but I would want to examine what now do the Guardians, as a family that has come together and is working as a unit, what strength does a working, functional family, what strength can they bring to the galaxy? I would want them to go on some kind of a mission. Maybe it has to do with the Celestials or the Eternals or something large, that working as a team together, kind of the way we saw at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, how they all work together as a team to destroy this creature. But I think I would do something more on a galactic scale, that it's the Guardians now finally working together as a cohesive team that allows them to triumph, no matter what that is. I don't know what that would be. I would have to come up with that. I don't know. Ghostface999 says, in The Last Jedi, men are cowardly, rash, morally compromised, and incompetent. The women are brilliant, heroic, wise, and virtuous. Where's the balance? Well, okay, that might be, but we've had lots of movies over the course of the last 100 years of cinema where men have taken center stage and have been heroic, like every Western ever made. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with making a film or a Star Wars movie. As I said, why not have heroic female characters? I don't mind that. I mean, I don't. The real question is, as I said, great stories well told. I don't care if the protagonists are male or female. I just want to see great stories. And I don't. Men can be cowardly, rash, and morally compromised and incompetent. I mean, how many times have other people seen themselves that way? I mean, I don't see that. Those are details in the greater story of what was being told in The Last Jedi. And I think that the main story about The Last Jedi was where Luke Skywalker was at, and what was going on there, and what was happening between Kylo Ren and Rey. Everything else is kind of ancillary to those stories. So that Poe Dameron was kind of a hothead in the middle of this battle and did stupid things and got a lot of people killed. That happens, but it didn't really bother me. Mark C says, heard you mention Christopher Lambert's Resurrection. Have you seen Night Moves with Lambert, Diane Lane, and Tom Skerritt? If you have thoughts, I have not seen that, but what a cast. I love Tom Skerritt and I love Diane Lane. I got to look that up. Is it good? Big for Adam, a life gamer says, hey, Rob, over or under 40% R&B will dust again in the John Campea show. Probably over. I think. Mark C also says, I want to suggest a low budget Rambo type movie that was just before First Blood. It's called Ruckus, starring Dirk Benedict, Linda Blair, and Ben Johnson. What a cast! And a movie called Ruckus. I would totally watch that. Wow, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that. I have not heard of Ruckus. Ghostface 999 comes back and says he loves Buffy. Nobody forced it down my throat. Yeah, that's why I think it's so strange. I mean, I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like because I was watching a movie about a female protagonist, and I loved Spike and I loved Angel, and there were all kinds of Willow. I like those things. It's such a strange. It's strange to me to think that now we're getting all of this, that you've got people bitching about Captain Marvel because of something Brie Larson said, when we've had, like I talked about, Aliens and Ripley and I loved Buffy, and that ran a long time. Mark C says it's not the addition of minorities. Current forced diversity is not adding minorities, but replacing straight white males for these groups. Check out the all new, all different Avengers comic. Adding diversity is great. Look, here's the thing. Like, I guess I look at it this way. I don't see like white men being replaced. I'm seeing, I think, yes, people are overcompensating, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with seeing, stories with more diversity in them. I guess I'm secure enough in where I'm from or where I'm going that I'm not bothered by seeing large minority representation in comics or in science fiction, and I think it's fine. It'll all balance out. Remember, we're in sort of a revolutionary and evolutionary period of time that we're living through. I mean, everybody wants their whatever they want it right now. They don't want to take time and have it evolve, but it'll all settle down. But the key is not to trade one kind of oppression for another. Nobody should be oppressed. We have to evolve and get better so everyone can move forward together. That's how we'll be strongest. I mean, I honestly believe that. So, I think Keaton Carr 89 says, have you seen the series Ulysses 31? Amazing show. I have not. What is Ulysses 31? See, I don't know everything. That sounds good. I love the title. Ulysses 31. That's great. I don't know what that is. So I will have to go back and check out what Ulysses 31 is, because I don't know. Hassan Chavez asked, hello, gatekeeper. Listen, man, I'm only the gatekeeper of verisimilitude. I'm not the gatekeeper of anything else. Here, I don't understand that whole gatekeepers and fandom. Look, I don't think that me railing against bad storytelling is being a gatekeeper. As I've said, I don't care whether you like Star Trek Discovery or not. It's fine if that's your first Star Trek, or you like Star Trek Discovery for various reasons. I think it's turned into it's not good science fiction anymore. Even their weird sci-fi science is magical. The whole mycelial realm thing, I can't stand it. Anyway, sorry, Hassan, your question. Would you recommend Night of the Comet? I'm going to make a short film this year. What 80s and 90s movie should boost my imagination? Okay. I used to go on Sundays to see movies with my friend Adam Carl. And we would make it a point to try and go see like the worst movie playing. And sometimes we would run into gems that we loved. And Night of the Comet was one of those gems. I love Night of the Comet. It's so much fun. And by the way, Shout put out a great Blu-ray of it, and it's a lot of fun. Oh man, there's so many 80s and 90s movies to boost your imagination, but Night of the Comet's, from the 80s. God, I'd have to think about that, because I talk about so many different films, but yeah, Night of the Comet is certainly one of them. I really Night of the Comet. If you haven't seen Night of the Comet, it's a lot of fun. You really should check it out. It's really good. But I'll think about that. What other movies? And you'll have to get back to me on that, because I don't know what Night of the Comet, beyond Night of the Comet. I mean, what other movies? There was a lot of weird sci-fi movies like The Wraith, and not good sci-fi movies. The Wraith, Wavelength, which I talked about the other day. stuff that, really not the greatest, not the greatest in the world. But anyway. I've caught up with the super chats that I missed, so I'm just going to go back in and jump right into the questions that you have. And there's some questions back here in this chat that I wanted to get to, so I'm gonna go back and get to those as well. The chats that that I missed in this last time. Here's a good one that I really liked from Proud Proletarian. He says, or she says, the far left is not liberal. H.G. Wells pointed this out in his nonfiction book, The New World Order. Chapter 4 of that book rips Karl Marx a new one. Wells was a socialist. Yeah, I think the far left and socialism, it's all getting intermingled. The far left scares me, as I said, more than anything. The alt-right, you can see coming a mile away, cloaked in their fascist imagery, but the far left, they all think they're doing the right thing for people, but they'll do the right thing for you with a gun pointed to your head, or they'll slit your throat if they don't like what you've said in the to try and do the right thing, which is always scary to me. The King of Scotland says, Rob, you once said the main problem with Disney Star Wars is that people don't care. And honestly, I'm getting to that point. When I said that, what I meant was that people don't care about these new characters. What they cared about was Luke, Han, and Leia, because that was what Star Wars was. But it's, this is a business. Film is a business. We're all trying to make money. And when Bad Robot came along, look, what they did to R2-D2 in The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens by putting literally a tarp is over his head, and he's just turning himself off. I mean, I made a joke once, and I got in trouble. That one of the Paramount lawyers asked me about this. I had tweeted a picture that I didn't make of R2-D2 standing next to J.J. Abrams, who was there with the script for The Force Awakens, and there was a thought bubble or a speaking bubble that said, "Fuck you, dude." and I retweeted that, and I said, R2 speaks truth to power. And the lawyers at Paramount said, do you hate J.J. Abrams? What are you trying to do with this tweet? And I'm like, I didn't even make that picture. I just thought it was really interesting that you take R2-D2, who's been the hero literally of 6 movies, and in Force Awakens, because they wanted to create new characters so people would buy new toys and new, everybody loves BB-8. So we recreate a new character in BB-8 so they can get all the money from the merchandising, and that's really why they did it. Let's not fool ourselves. But so R2-D2 BB-8 exists at the expense of R2-D2, and I don't think any fans, Star Wars fans, appreciate that. They needed to figure out a way to work R2-D2 in, and I think that was the entire problem with the very conception of The Force Awakens, and that it has new characters and started anew, and they were all created at the expense of the beloved Star Wars characters that already existed. And that's, I think, what ultimately, look, people love The Force Awakens, I get it. It's fine, but why do they have to make our characters? Why does R2-D2 have to be an idiot? That's what I don't like. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that makes me angry. So anyway, I'm going to jump back up and see who's here and say hello to everyone. Destiny Captain says, Rob, I'm about halfway through watching your show from earlier. Dude, I'm not sure where you're going with it, but I think you're missing something. I probably was, because I didn't quite go where I wanted to go. But Sebastian's here. He's saying hello. Your previous stream was interesting. Thank you. Let's see. Zach Losel says, just put on the John Campea show, and then this pops up. What a glorious day. Revenge for Han. This is Barker wrote. I love that. Reese Williams says, 3 live shows with R&B in one day. Aren't we lucky? I don't know. Some people will be like, are we lucky? People would say, like, no, I want to smash that guy's face. Veston says, so Robert, you've got it. Thank you. I'm figuring it all out. Copa says, why can't we be more like animals? An orange tiger doesn't discriminate against a white tiger. No, I don't understand that. I don't know. You know what, though? My friend Mike Bodden said something today that was interesting. He said he was talking about how of all the people in the animal kingdoms, we derive more meaning and more experience through the world through our visual acuity than anyone else. I mean, we read our language, all of that. and that we are in a way sort of, and this book I was reading, Sapiens, kind of talks about that in a way that we're born racists. And the important thing is because of the way we're hardwired and evolutionarily, we should just recognize that, and then we can use our culture and what we have created through our intellect and our language and our societal cues and all those things. We can learn to not be racist, and that's what civilization is about. To me, all those vestiges of barbarism, and racism is one of them, to discriminate against people because of the way they look is sort of counterproductive, but everybody does it. I mean, literally everybody does it. Cousin Neil says, Rob is live. Cousin Neil, we need to talk, brother. I owe you some voiceover tracks, which I can get you this week. I want to know what's up, man. I want to hear the story, because we got the world is waiting for us, for you. Kavisha Punchahiwa? Punch, that's a great name. I was trying to get this question answered before, but thoughts on Suspiria. Dude, I have not watched the Suspiria remake. I own it. I have it on Blu-ray. It's sitting on my table there, and I've yet to see it. I can't believe I haven't seen it. It is a terrible oversight in my life, and it's horrific, and I'm very, very sorry I have not watched the Suspiria remake, because I'm an idiot. I'm not proud, being the horror fan that I am. I have not seen it. Venice Beach Sports Network says, Robert went to Evergreen. I did. I went to the Evergreen State College before I transferred to USC, and it was a far, far different place than it was in 2017, where a bunch of, in my mind, people that should have never actually been at the school took over the school. And it was, what I saw at Evergreen in 2017 was shameful. It was shameful, and the school should be embarrassed how they handled it. The administration handled it poorly, and the students were beyond the pale. And it made me sad. It made me sad to see what happened. Anyway, let's see. Vesta says, is there any word for gender blind, race blind, and religion blind? I would like to know, in what word do I belong? I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't even know if that's possible. It's so weird. But yeah, there should be a word for that. I don't know if we're capable of living up to that word. Crixus Maximus says Iron Man Guardians team up. Well, that's kind of what they did in Infinity War, right? Yeah, I know it's been done in the books. Well, yeah, it could be. I mean, Farky50 says college in America is for business. Look at sports-related funds and contracts. That's true. I mean, there's a lot of money involved. There's money involved everywhere. I just hope we evolve to the point where we can have monetary interests and social interests working hand in hand, because you can't have one without the other. I've never understood, like, the income inequality gap is no good for anyone. As the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, what it does is it chips away at the fabric of our civilization. It's never a good thing. It should. I'm sorry. I just saw Reese Williams say the gatekeeper of verisimilitude, leader of the post-geek singularity. That's what I am, R&B. Well, I don't know if I'm the leader of the post-geek singularity, but you guys are all members of the post-geek singularity, of which I am a vocal member of it as well. So we're kind of all in it together. Because, one of the great things about the internet is there's so many people that you can get in touch with. All the creators that you like, and like, I'll give you an example. I'm a huge fan. I've talked about him before on the show. Don Winslow, the author Don Winslow. And Don Winslow has a new book. I think it might have dropped this week, either this week or last week, called The Border. Now, Don Winslow has written a lot of California noir, crime fiction that's set in California. And he wrote basically his Lord of the Rings triptych of books about Mexican drug cartels. The first book was called The Power of the Dog. Then he wrote The Border, or then he wrote The Cartel, and then the concluding chapter is The Border, which is a very thick book, and it was great. So if you love Don Winslow, and Don Winslow, I tweet back and forth with Don Winslow, and he's actually sent me books just because I've randomly tweeted about his books for no reason at all, just because I'm like, oh my God, I just reread California Fire and Life, and I loved it. So we live in this amazing age where we can meet creators, at least over the internet, and be enthusiastic about their work. And we live in a time where there's so much great stuff. And as I said before, Russian Doll and The Umbrella Academy, 2 shows on Netflix now. They're just fantastic, and you should watch them. Let's see. Farky50 says, I just want to go to film school and I am disgusted with the cost. Yeah, college is expensive, but it doesn't stop you from learning film. You can start teaching yourself film by just picking up your iPhone and going out and making movies. You can do that. Mark Lurseth, Mark Lurthis says, there's nothing wrong with heroic female characters. It is having them at the expense of the male characters. Well, that's true. I mean, look, I don't think that's great writing. I don't think, I mean, I really liked what they did in Wonder Woman, the relationship between Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor. They didn't make Steve Trevor, an incompetent fool to make Wonder Woman look better. And to me, that's bad writing. But there's a lot of people coming in and they're writing stories that haven't been able to get in and write before. And again, it's all overcompensation. We're working through history. It's sort of a boiling cauldron, and we're trying to fix and get the exact right mix of ingredients. So to me, one day we're going to get to the point where everyone is included and human diversity is celebrated and valued. So I hope we're going that way. C. Kruger asks, will I tour my Hot Toys? Well, there is a video that I made for the 100th episode of Collider on my channel, the Burnett Work, and it's at the very beginning of the Burnett Work where I did do a partial tour. I don't have a place where I'm living now here in the house here that I have a place big enough where I have my display cases full of my Hot Toys. But I've got my Imaginarium set that I've been building in the garage with all my stuff, and I probably should give people a look because everybody asks about that. Rob, Hitman Heart Wrestling with Shadows can be found on YouTube. Also, I hope you got my email I sent of my framed artwork of the Infinity Gauntlet. Oh, that was you. Yes, I love the framed artwork of the Infinity Gauntlet. That was awesome. That was terrific. Really, really cool. Well done. It was very, very cool. Paul Soltis says he thought Janeway was a kick-ass captain. Yeah, Koba wants more heroic animal characters because I love heroic animal characters. Jim Starlin wrote a comic called Dreadstar, and there was an animal character named Syzygy Darklock. I think Syzygy Darklock was a character name which I loved. Good stuff. Samuel Poley says that John's Twitter is dusted. It is. Koba says less animal being portrayed in evil traitors like Caesar, traitor to the ape kind. Is Caesar? I get it. Koba says less animals being portrayed in evil traitors like Caesar, traitor to ape kind. Koba, come on, bro. I'm not with you there. I thought you turned on your friend. I love that. Jeffrey G. Robert, I've missed the last few shows, but caught your video from earlier, and I always seem to pick the ones to catch up on at just the right time and can extra appreciate it. Well, that's good. It's weird. I want to get back to my movie series where I talk about my favorite movies that begin with the letter G, but I didn't. Mark Lurseth says, if Mark Hamill said, I don't care what black women say about New Hope, it wasn't written for them, would that be outrageous? Yes, it would be outrageous. I mean, come on. That is, here's the difference. Here's the difference. We white men have been at the top of the food chain for a very long period of time, especially in Western culture. And we've marginalized all kinds of people all over the world. So to me, it's okay when those voices come up and get a chance to speak, and they get a chance to have a loud megaphone to voice their ideas. Now, they have a right to be angry. But as I've said, the oppression Olympics do not require or shouldn't be that if you're an oppressed person and you suddenly become oppressing somebody else or oppressing your oppressors isn't going to work in the long run. Oppression of any kind doesn't work. But so your point is well taken. But it would be outrageous. I mean, the fact of the matter is we have a racial history in this country that needs to be recognized. And Look, never. The Black experience in America today, right now, as I speak these words, has never been equal. There's never been true equality for Black Americans. Never. I mean, is there all kinds of opportunity that wasn't here before? Sure. Have there are there now Black captains of industry and people like Shonda Rhimes in television are creating TV shows? And absolutely, there's more opportunity than ever before. But don't for a moment think that Black Americans have ever achieved any kind of total equality in this country. They just have not. And so, and why haven't they? Well, because in American history, we had over 250 years of slavery in this country. And that's important. And I think that it's important to remember marginalized voices, people that haven't had voices. There's going to be some overcompensation, and there's going to be we're living through a period of time where we're having to evolve and change. And the question is the real question is, what are we all going to do about it together? How are we going to listen to one another and move forward without screaming and yelling and blowing each other up and eventually winding up in fistfights on the street? We stab each other to death because no one will stop and have a cogent conversation about your point of view. I mean, when I was in high school reading things like Invisible Man, those kinds of books about the Black experience were completely out of my wheelhouse, but reading those books helped me understand. And so, look, I get it. We have a long history. Human beings have a long history of which we need to get over ourselves. And everybody wants the world to be, they want the world to be the way they want it to be right now. But it's an evolutionary process, and we're a lot further along than we were 50 years ago or 100 years ago. So, what's great is to keep the conversation going. And rather than, and I know on the internet it's impossible. I'm telling people, yes, we should have cogent conversations with one another. Thoughtful examinations of the issues on the internet. But hope springs eternal. Jeffrey G says, it was neat as a kid born in 81 to hear about your experiences growing up with Star Wars, as Jedi is my favorite and the Rancor toy I still have not ever been able to get. Someday, though, anyway, I'm getting it. I'm getting sidetracked. You are intelligent, well-spoken, and have a fine outlook on life. And it is so refreshing watching your videos. And just wanted to say thanks and keep doing what you do. On the topic of the last video, you might appreciate Conan Without Borders on NF. What is that? Cheers. And Miss Bonnie B says hi as well. Well, hello. Well, Jeffrey G, I like that you had to say that because you're born. See, here's the thing. Jedi, you were born when Star Wars and Empire had already come out. And that's the great thing. What I love about Star Wars, I think the most, is Star Wars has become a rite of passage for, and I know someone's going to say, as a cis white male, it's easy for you to say this, but Star Wars has become a rite of passage for like all the kids around the world. I mean, there are kids all around the world that love Star Wars. I know Star Wars is not as big in China as it was, but that's because the Chinese already had so many great myths with sword wielding heroes. But it's kind of neat that Star Wars, and generation after generation, Star Wars is now 42 years old. I mean, we're pushing half a century that Star Wars has been around. That's a lot of generations of kids. So it's great. It's great that that you have that, and then by the way, thanks for the kind words, and that you have Miss Bonnie Bay. Is it Bonnie Bay? Bonnie B says hi as well. That you have a Bonnie B. That sounds good. That you have a B in your Bonnie. That's good. Samuel Pole says the question anyone with a brain would ask. Then he deleted his Twitter. Oh, I don't know. I don't know what's up with that. I have not caught up. There's amazing stuff going on Twitter that I have been not privy to today. So because I've been doing these live chats, I don't know what's up. Mega J says the Expanse is awesome, best sci-fi series since Battlestar. Totally agree. I love that. And you know what I love about the Expanse is it's got all this great internal politics, literally, but it's also got the big ideas with the proto-matter. And wait till you see where all that stuff leads. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Vesta says, Robert, when will you do your list of movies with the letter G? This week, when I run out of things to talk about. No, I got to do it. I've got some of them right here. I'll give you a preview. Let's see. I'll give you a preview. One of my favorite G-lettered movies, you're getting a preview now. Get Him to the Greek. I kid you not. This is the sequel to Saving Sarah Marshall. I love Get Him to the Greek. I love this movie. I watch it all the time. It cracks me up. It is so funny, and no one talks about it, and I love it. Get Him to the Greek is one of my top, one of the, as some of you might know, that I have these series. I'm up to the letter F, where I pull 10 movies from my collection, and I talk about not the greatest movies in the world, not the most famous movies in the world, but just movies that I particularly love. Some of them are well known, some of them aren't so well known, but they're just favorites of mine. And Get Him to the Greek is a movie that I don't think people would normally associate me with, but I love it so much. I love it so much. So that is a tour. My G's are sitting right behind the Xenomorph head. So I was able to grab that and give you a preview. Koba says, that being said, Star Wars is still speciesist. The two humans get a medal, but the Wookiee doesn't. Speciesism. I love Koba. You know what? Koba's not wrong. I mean, I would say that Wookiees and Koba are probably distant cousins somewhere. If you believe in like all kinds of crazy stuff, that we could have had that life forms parallel development or whatever. But why didn't Chewbacca get a medal at the end of Star Wars? You know why? Because George Lucas probably didn't think that Wookiees needed medals. And yes, it's speciesist. It's speciest. Would you say instead of speciest? How would you say it? Speciesist? Specious? I know there's specious, but speciest. I love that. Destiny Captain, the new Star Wars have not done any of the character building required to elevate their new characters. Their characters around them tell you how great they are. Just like Discovery, it's bad writing. Could not agree with you more. I agree. It's bad. It is bad writing. One of the great things about Star Wars is you see Luke have this interaction. You totally understand where he's coming from because he's so much us. You know, when he's looking at the twin setting suns of Tatooine and you hear John Williams, you know, that theme, and he's looking out at the future he's probably never going to have because Biggs and Tank have left. He has no friends. He's a moisture farmer. He doesn't even have anyone to fly his T-16 Skyhopper with. And the funny thing with all the characters in The Force Awakens, it's all done by shorthand. You know, yeah, you've got Rey living in an Imperial Walker, and you kind of see your life, but it's all shorthand. To me, it's like, I call it cutscene storytelling. It's video game storytelling, where you take these cues and you're just supposed to get what's going on, but it's not really fleshed out. It's not character building. You're not feeling the characters, you're seeing the characters. At least that's the way I see it. Bob, that's how you call gatekeeping. Those who call out gatekeeping usually want to be the gatekeeper. It's a media defense against standards by the audience. Better to gatekeep for quality over lazy corporate ambitions. Well, yeah, that's probably true, but I don't think see, here's the funny thing. When you spend $4 billion on a franchise, Disney is looking for a return of $16 billion. So Disney wants to make the best Star Wars they can. The problem is, the biggest problem with all of these franchises is the companies that own them, if they do something offensive. I'll tell you a story that came out of my own life. So I produced a horror film that came out 10 years ago. It's a decade old, called The Hills Run Red. Now, it's hard R, but when we were shooting the movie, there were some scenes in it of extreme sexual violence and incest and really hardcore, nasty stuff. And when we showed the film to our studio executive, to Diane Nelson, who used to be the head of DC Entertainment, who's still a friend of mine, and I love her to death. When she saw the movie, she came out mortified. I mean, even though they'd had the script, it's one thing to read lines in a screenplay, but to see it portrayed on screen, I mean, this stuff was, when I tell you, it was horrific. By the way, I have all the scenes still, so. But they're not in the movie. They're not in the movie. And ultimately, rightfully so, I think, because one of the great things that's happened over the last 20 years is women have become the primary audience for horror. There's even more girls watching horror movies than boys, ladies than dudes. And uh, I don't think that if The Hills Run Red, as we originally shot it and put it together, if The Hills Run Red had these scenes of extreme violence in them, and say you're some 16-year-old girl with your friends, you've gone to Walmart and you go buy The Hills Run Red on DVD and you take it home and you watch it, it would not be a very pleasant experience for the girls who are watching this film. And they complain, and this stuff, by the way, this is very NC-17 stuff that was in the movie. And it was right for Diane Nelson to complain, and it was right for us. We didn't quit the movie. Director Dave Parker stayed on board with his editorial team, and we took these scenes out. And I don't really miss them. I think if they were in the movie, if you like The Hills Run Red, it's already a really harsh movie. It's got harsh stuff that happens in it, but it would unbalance the film. These scenes were so shocking. They were very, in terms of violence, it was pornographic violence. It was violence without feeling, and it was really terrible. And I think the movie, in this case, Warner Brothers was right to have us take this material out. So you've got your corporate minders, Disney, who owns Star Wars. What they're trying to do is make the best Star Wars for everyone. They really are. Disney doesn't want to make bad Star Wars. They don't want controversy. They're trying, believe it or not, to make the best product they can make. That's what they're trying to do. And they're hiring the creators that they believe in, and they're trying to make the movies that they want to make, and they want it to be great. They do, but they again, they are chasing trends, and they're looking at demographics, and they are doing focus groups and finding out what people want. And I don't think that's the best way to make great art. I think over at the MCU, they're doing a much better job because they have great synergy between the filmmakers and the executives. Whereas Star Wars, I mean, look, I'm really excited about The Mandalorian. I think it's going to kick ass. I think we're going to get some very, very cool Star Wars, because I think the creators have a pretty good handle. Just listening to Taika Waititi talk about what they're going for and how they're going to do it, I think it's going to be great stuff. Star says, "Awesome show, Rob." Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm talking a long time. Dale M says, "Damn, 3 times with Robert in one day. This is great. Thanks, Rob. We love it." Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. But I came back because I felt bad because I didn't answer SuperChat questions because I'm an idiot. So I came back and found them and answered them. BB-8 is a basketball with an attitude, says Clayton George. Someone hire an elephant to stomp on him. Yeah. It's funny. I feel like with BB-8, see, you can't make a cult movie. You can't set out to make a cult movie. And with BB-8, they set out to make a cute robotic sidekick. And the thing is, he's designed to be a cute robotic sidekick, or she, whatever. I'm anthropomorphizing astromech droids. But I think that R2-D2 was cool and cute and accessible because of his design and the way he was portrayed, his character, whereas BB-8 is straining to be so cute. The love, BB-8 had a built-in audience love that I found sort of deeply cynical in a way. Like, wait a minute, why don't you show me BB-8 earning his way into our hearts? And he doesn't do anything that R2 didn't do, after all. And yeah. Anyway, Rob is an X-Men Age of Apocalypse. Oh, Rob, Matt Lempicki says Rob is the X-Men Age of Apocalypse omnibus worth buying. Dude, I have it in the garage with all my on my shelves out there. But yes, the X-Men Age of Apocalypse omnibus is worth buying. Talk about entertainment value. It's like 1,200 pages. I love the Age of Apocalypse storyline. It was bonkers. It was peak 90s X-Men, or maybe Onslaught was peak 90s X-Men. Another bonkers omnibus, but the Age of Apocalypse storyline I really, really liked. Let's see. Any thoughts? I can't. Sexy Blues. Any thoughts on the Star Trek Vanguard novel series? Yeah, Vanguard Station, the novel series, very, very cool. I love that. That was set in the time of the original series. And there's this station on the edge of this area of space. It's great, as a matter of fact. A lot of my favorite Star Trek novelists worked on the Vanguard. series of novels. Really, really good. The whole series is great. There's not a weak book in the bunch. Farky50 says, I've seen some of the original, not the second remake or the continuation. I don't know what that is. Well, it must be up. I didn't know what you're answering that. Let's see. Destiny Captain says, Rob, I love these damn shows. More, please. Man, I can only talk so much. I haven't even had an alcoholic beverage today. Of course, it is 3:45, but you know. Let's see. MSG Big Boss 77 says, so is Lando going to snuff it in episode 9? Then Mega J? I don't know, man. I don't know. I hope Lando's well represented in episode 9. Stubble McShave says, it would have been better if the new Star Wars movies were set in another era. Disney should have kept the existing EU, but stopped the new EU material from being created if they wanted to control it. You know, again, here's the thing. You know, when Disney was buying Star Wars, they're thinking about movies and the animated series. The books, that no one ever thinks about that stuff. The ancillary stuff, that always comes later. And the corporations, the people that are making the decision, Bob Iger's like, I'm sure Bob Iger was like, yeah, I've heard they've have these Star Trek novels or Star Wars novels, and video games and all that. I mean, if you tried to talk to him about, you know, Shadows of the Empire was a multimedia event that all worked together synergistically and created more canon, he'd be like, what? Shadows of the Empire? You know, it's one person doesn't know what the other person is doing, which is sort of a bummer. But anyway, let's see. What do we got here? Big Boss 77 again says Chewie snuffed it in the Star Wars EU anyway. It's true. Chewie died. But I'm in Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy. Yeah, I'm afraid. But in Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy, yeah, I'm afraid for him. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Chewie did die in those books. It's a bummer. Aaron Johnson says, Rob, you mentioned earlier Jaws. In my opinion, my opinion is that I look at Jaws as an action comedy because aside from the shark being attacked, the arguments between Hooper and Brody are hilarious. Look, Jaws has, again, all of the great horror movies. I mean, even The Exorcist has some comedy between Lieutenant Kinderman and Father Karras. I mean, I don't see Jaws as an action comedy, but I see it as a, you know, it's a men on a mission movie. It's Hooper, Brody, and Quint going after the shark. And you look at Jaws, half that movie is when they're out on the high seas going after Bruce. And it's a great film on every level. I love it. It's so great. Yeah, it's so great. Clayton George says, there is no leader of a singularity. We are a friendly, creative, more positive Borg collective. I love that, Clayton George. Absolutely. That's exactly what we are. That's fantastic. Dan V900 says, Chewie will be fine, and the biggest hypocrisy is being upset with Chewie dying in a heroic moment with saving everyone while being fine with Han dying in The Force Awakens. Yeah, Han dying in The Force Awakens was lame. Literally, like Kirk, he fell off a bridge. Not good. Not good. I can't believe I've spoken for almost another hour. Reese Williams says, good night, everyone. I'm off. Good night, Reese. Sleep well. You know, I think that Hassan Chavez is back, who says, after Bandersnatch, do you think interactive TV has a future? I'd like to see an interactive version of Mr. Nobody. Oh, my God. Okay. Hassan Chavez is talking about Mr. Nobody. Mr. Nobody is one of my favorite fantasy science fiction films of the last 2 decades. It is right up there with Children of Men. It is Jared Leto stars in it. It is so good. And you know what? Oh, God, Hassan, that is a great idea. Doing a whole series version of Mr. Nobody using the interactive technology they created for Bandersnatch. I hope we see that technology again because they're getting sued by the Choose Your Own Adventure book people for stealing their idea. If you guys have not seen Mr. Nobody, there's 2 versions of it, and I highly recommend finding the longer director's cut. It's fantastic. It is, again, Mr. Nobody, Jared Leto. I think it came out, I want to say it's originally dated 2009, but it took me years to see it. I was like, how do I get this movie? And it's great. So if you guys haven't seen Mr. Nobody, see Mr. Nobody and report back. It's kind of like sliding doors in a way. It's about the roads we all can take but don't. Mega J says Attila was actually a great female protagonist. Oh, Alita. I think it was Alita. Alita was actually a great female protagonist with positive role for all the characters. It deserves more credit, especially as a manga adaptation. Listen, I don't doubt it. I love James Cameron. I mean, James Cameron gave us the Ripley in Aliens, which extrapolated on the Ripley from Alien, Sarah Connor, Alita. I mean, the characters in Avatar. I mean, he's always Jamie Lee Curtis in True Lies stepping up to the plate. Cameron has always loved strong female protagonists, and it's a great thing. Farky50 says, I mean, Justice League really, really, really low shots on her scenes with Wonder Woman. Yeah. Anyway. Dale M says, Mark Hamill would never say that. He's one of the classiest, nicest, and most accessible actors in Hollywood. Accessible. He is. Mark Hamill is a joy. I've met him a couple of times. What a nice guy. Amazingly terrific personality. Koba says, it reminds me of the speech Peter Capaldi gave as the doctor in the Zygon episode, asking what a revolutionary would do, and then the next revolution happens. Sit down and talk. That's right. Matt Limpicky says, I totally agree with you, Robert Meyer Burnett. Well, even if you didn't, it's good that you're here and we can chat about it. Dan V900 says, acting the way she was shot in Justice League was worse than a Michael Bay movie. It's pretty ridiculous. Chris Pine wore nothing in the bath in Wonder Woman. I don't know about that. I don't know what we're talking about yet. I've lost. Rob, the main reason I didn't like Logan was because he fought himself, which I thought was dumb as shit. He would have fought Cyber, Wendigo, Omega Red, Bloodscream, etc. Yeah, I agree, but if you look at a movie like Logan and you look at the tone of the film, if you brought in, I mean, they already had a lot of superpowered or bionic characters in that movie. I love Omega Red. I love when Omega Red was introduced, by the way, or Cyber. But you're right. But then the tone of the movie would be different. I thought, Logan was fighting himself the whole movie anyway, and fighting a clone of himself was sort of brought that whole message home. Vesta says, I have nothing against Cap's biceps or Thor's shirtless torso, but with Kylo, it was awkward, but maybe it should be the bait for Rey, and it worked. That's very interesting. It was kind of awkward. I mean, remember, Kylo Ren in real life is actually a Marine, or is an ex-Marine. So, but yeah, it was weird. It was a strange move. Dan V900 says George Lucas was actually heavily involved in the EU and really liked the comics, which is why Quinlan Vos survived Order 66. He didn't read as many books, but was involved in the Thrawn trilogy. Yeah, I mean, George Lucas was smart about that. He surrounded himself with great people, and they had great material. I think that was good. That was great what he did. Chris P says, RMB, what would you think of a remake of The Running Man starring The Rock? Well, okay. First of all, if you guys don't know, The Running Man is actually, believe it or not, a Stephen King novel he wrote under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. It was the fourth of the Bachman books. There was Rage, The Long Walk, Road Work, and The Running Man. And The Running Man, the book is great. The movie with Richard Dawson and, of course, Arnold starring is kind of a cartoon. And I would love to see a remake. I didn't know, is that true, Chris P? Are they really remaking The Running Man with The Rock? I would love to see that, because in the original book, The Running Man was more of an everyday person. And okay, now I'm going to go. There is a movie that stars Ursula Andress and Marcello Mastroianni. And it was the one science fiction film directed by this great, I want to say, Italian director whose name is escaping me, but he also directed, I think the movie's called Investigation of a Citizen Under Suspicion. That's a terrific, terrific movie. But it's a movie that's based on a Robert Sheckley short story called The Seventh Victim. The movie is called The 10th Victim. It's a science fiction film that came out, and again, 1966, I think. And it's very Eurofuturist, and it's basically The 10th Victim is about, in the future, they have a thing called the Big Hunt, kind of like the Hunger Games. And in the Big Hunt, you have to be a victim or a hunter. and you get to travel around the world. If you're a victim, you can go anywhere you want, and you can also kill your hunter. And whoever survives 10 hunts and 10 runs, or whatever it's called, I don't remember what it's called, but becomes the big hero. And it's Marcello Mastroianni and Ursula Andress are going against one another. Well, the Running Man, the original Running Man, was a lot more like that. The original story was, it was basically about an everyman who needed to make money for his family. And the Running Man was like a reality TV show, and people get to follow the progress of this person, but you can go all over the world. And the movie turned it into a big cartoon. And I would love to see a much more faithful adaptation of the Running Man novel that Stephen King wrote as Richard Bachman. I think it'd be a lot better. I think it'd be really, really interesting if we could see that. I mean, I think it'd be tremendous. So I'm into that. I think that would be that's a great idea. Alexander Wilson says, it is the 30th anniversary of Apocalypse Now. I think it's one of the most disturbing movies I've seen. What is your opinion on the movie? Well, you can't see it, but this is where I also edit. I do all my film work here at this desk. There is a gigantic poster. I would say it's 4 feet across of Apocalypse Now. And it's one of the movies that inspires me most of all. The filmmaking, the storytelling, the technique, it's unbelievable. And it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love it so much. I don't like Apocalypse Now Redux, the second version of it, as much as I like the original, but I love Apocalypse Now, and it's right up there. I wish you could see it. If you have the Apocalypse Now Blu-ray that Lionsgate put out, the posters actually, it's posted by a Japanese artist. She was the costume designer for Coppola's Dracula, and she painted this. It's a very stylized painting of the waves and Huey helicopters and surfers, and it's all in Japanese, but it's a gigantic poster. It's huge, and one day I will show it to you, or I will do something like take a picture of it. Let's see. Clayton George says, Richard Bachman's The Long Walk would make a very stressful psychological horror film. I could see it done well, but only if it didn't skimp on the internal POV storytelling. That's another, okay, The Long Walk was a cult novel when I was in high school, or junior high school. It was before anybody knew Stephen King wrote it. I love The Long Walk so much. Incredible book. I believe Frank Darabont owns the rights, although I think in this day and age, okay, The Long Walk, for those of you who don't know, it's one of my favorite Stephen King books. The Long Walk is another one of these events where every year, I think it's every year, maybe every other year or something, in this near future sort of fascistic America, 50 young people, and in the book it's all men, it's all guys. I think it's all guys. 50 young people participate in this thing called The Long Walk, where they just start walking. And if you walk less than 3 miles an hour, you get a ticket. And if you get 3 tickets in an hour, you're shot in the head. And the long walk goes on until there's one person left walking. So those of you who love the Hunger Games know where a lot of this stuff came from. But the long walk goes in and out of who these characters are. Why did they join the long walk? How come they're more alike than they're different? It's a great book, and it's an incredible hook. I just don't know if you could make a movie where 100 young people get shot in the head. I think that would be tough. Just like Richard Bachman's first book, Rage, which will never get made. Stephen King wrote a book where a student takes his homeroom hostage with a gun. Fantastic novel, never going to get made, at least not for a long time. Charlie Rogers says, I sincerely hope something can be worked out with Marvel and Hulu. Jeff Loeb's letter may be hopeful. Do you think there's a chance for that, Rob? I do. I think what Charlie is referring to, as everyone knows, officially all of the last Jessica Jones and was canceled even before the third season. The third season is going to air. So all of the Netflix shows, Jessica Jones and The Punisher, were canceled. All the Netflix Marvel shows are now gone. I do think we're going to see them come back. Michael Elliott says, Hearts of Darkness, the making of Apocalypse Now, is as good as the movie. Well, I wouldn't go that far. But yes, Eleanor Coppola, Francis Coppola's wife, made this documentary called Hearts of Darkness, A Filmmaker's Apocalypse, and it is unbelievable. It's one of my favorite making of documentaries ever. It's just incredible. It is on the Blu-ray, the big Lionsgate Blu-ray set they put out about almost 10 years ago now, but it's incredible. If you like Apocalypse Now, get that. It's fantastic. Owen Tui says, Rob, with American Gods Season 2 and Good Omens, will we finally see a Sandman show like in the DC universe? You know what, dude? First of all, Owen Tui, Tuohy. Do you know Angela Tui by any chance? If you know Angela Tui, say Rob Burnett says hi. Say Bob Burnett says hi. And if she doesn't know who I am, go Flying Horseshoe Ranch. But anyway, I think a Sandman show is coming. I think it's going to be for HBO. I think it's going to be amazing. And I think it will come because seeing American Gods and all that stuff, it's incredible what we're getting. I never thought we'd see it, but we are, and it's great. Beatmaster says, Sandman is at New Line Cinema in production hell. Probably. They've tried so many times. Yeah. Captain Robert April says Marvel shows on Hulu depend on how long it takes for Netflix to get tired of running the episodes they have. Yeah, it's true. You are true. That is true. Matt Limpicki says, Robert, I almost have every issue. I highly recommend all new X-Men. Should I get the Avengers versus X-Men omnibus? Yes. I liked Avengers versus X-Men. I've always liked that. It's good. Vesna says, when is the first screening for Captain Marvel? I believe tonight. I think tonight is the first press screening. So, yeah. And we're down to MSG Big Boss 77 says Captain Robert April, like Cleopatra. It was planned to be 2 films, dude. So trust me, tons of material was shot for it. Snyder had way more material shot for his film before Whedon came. I can't even get into that again. Let's see. Superman Prime says, you mean the recent Avengers versus X-Men? Yeah, but whenever the Avengers tussled with X-Men in some way, shape, or form, in many, many different incarnations, I like that. But yes, I did like the recent Avengers versus X-Men. Although it's probably, isn't it like 10 years old now? Maybe not that long. I don't know. But I'm not sure which one. I mean, it was good. I guess that brings me, again, I've talked for an hour at a time. I'm going to... I'm gonna take my leave of you all. I just wanted to make sure that everybody who asked me super chat questions that I didn't answer, I answer those. And I want to find out what this thing that John Campy is talking about is all about. So anyway, I want to thank you all, members of the Post Geek Singularity community, for being here. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support of the channel, and thank you for listening to me prattle on for like 3 hours today. I will be back tomorrow on the John Campy Show at 9 a.m. Then you can find me back here at noon with an interesting topic to discuss. So keep on commenting and saying whatever you want to say, and I really appreciate you all being here. If you, the members of the Post Geek Singularity community, weren't here, I wouldn't have anything to talk about. And once again, as always, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you haven't heard yet. All you have to do is listen. And with that, I'm out. I'm also out of liquor. So I'm going to go to the local kick-your-ass liquor store, and I'm going to go buy some frothy brew to drink with dinner. Probably a nice glass of Bordeaux, maybe a Pinot. I don't know. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.